When socialite Hope Cooke married the Sikkim Crown Prince, many expected her to be the next Grace Kelly. However, dark rumors soon emerged regarding the true motives behind her marriage. Hope Cooke is a notable figure in American history. Born into wealth, she gained international tabloid attention in the 1960s after marrying a Sikkim prince, giving her an uncommon royal title for an American. While the wedding was celebrated, it was quickly followed by a series of unsettling events that Hope could not hide, even while living a lavish royal life. Hope Cooke was born on June 24, 1940, in San Francisco. Her father, John J. Cooke, an Irish flight instructor, met her mother, Hope Noyes, on the job. Cooke's mother was an amateur pilot and the daughter of a wealthy shipping magnate. Hope was named after her mother. Tragically, both parents abandoned her early in life. Her father left shortly after her birth, and her mother died in a plane crash when Hope was just 2 years old. It is believed that her mother flew with a nearly empty gas tank, and Hope later claimed in her autobiography that she suspected her mother took her own life. Growing up, Hope was never informed about the fate of her mother's remains, as her family avoided the topic. After their mother's death, Hope and her older half-sister moved to New York to live with their maternal grandparents. However, their grandparents were not nurturing and kept the girls in a separate apartment across the hall. Despite their wealth, Hope's childhood was far from comfortable. Her grandparents showed little interest in parenting, and the sisters were raised by a series of governesses, some of whom treated them cruelly. In her autobiography, Hope describes the abuse she suffered from one particularly strict governess who used a coat hanger. It is unclear how much their grandparents knew of this mistreatment, but they likely did not intervene. Relief came tragically when Hope's grandfather died when she was 12, followed by her grandmother 3 years later. As a minor, she then moved in with her aunt and uncle, who led a glamorous life due to her uncle's diplomatic career. This period sparked Hope's interest in adventure. After some persuasion, her aunt and uncle allowed her to finish high school in Tehran, a vibrant change that exposed her to extravagant parties with Iranian politicians and royalty. This experience broadened her cultural horizons and ignited her fascination with Asia. After completing high school in Iran, Hope Cooke attended Sarah Lawrence College. Inspired by her travels and a brief visit to India, she was eager to study Asian history. Unfortunately, that was not available to freshmen, so she was required to take European history instead. However, leveraging her privilege, her professors permitted her to focus her papers on India. Throughout her studies, Hope traveled to India multiple times, falling in love with its landscape and people, and eagerly seeking any opportunity to return. One justification for a significant trip to Darjeeling in 1959 was Hope Cooke's claim that she was there to take a typing course. However, she gained much more than just typing skills. Hope Cooke had a taste for luxury, even in India, and chose to stay at the Windermere Hotel, a lavish colonial establishment. During her stay, she met Palden Thondup Namgyal, the Crown Prince of Sikkim, and they quickly formed a deep and unexpected bond. The Crown Prince, who had recently lost his wife, saw in Hope someone who could fit into his life. Although they seemed like an unlikely couple, Hope later revealed in her autobiography that she was a young student captivated by Indian spirituality and searching for a sense of belonging in the country. According to Hope, the Crown Prince was looking for a mother figure for his children. However, if you had asked them at the time, they would have told a different story. They connected emotionally as both had experienced lonely childhoods filled with trauma. The Crown Prince had to stop his education at the age of 6 due to malaria, which left him isolated from other children. Hope reflected in her journal that the prince may have had an even sadder childhood than hers. This shared understanding led the Crown Prince to propose to Hope after only their second meeting, and she eagerly accepted. Later, when asked why she agreed so quickly, she mentioned that she was drawn to his sad eyes. Despite their quick engagement, they did not marry for another 2 years. Hope and the Crown Prince were excited to plan their wedding for 1962, but they faced an unexpected delay. Indian astrologers and various signs indicated that the upcoming year was not favorable for weddings. Taking these superstitions seriously, they decided to postpone their plans. Hope Cooke and Prince Namgyal finally married on March 20, 1963, in a Buddhist monastery, where they wore traditional scarves during the ceremony. This made Hope the first American-born queen consort of Sikkim, a rare position, with only actress Grace Kelly having a similar title after marrying the Prince of Monaco in 1956. After the wedding, Hope moved to Sikkim and was surprised by the stark contrast between her new home and New York City. The beautiful Himalayan landscape, with its emerald hills and snow-capped mountains, was a refreshing change. Although she had traveled extensively, Hope quickly adapted to her new surroundings and seemed more captivated by the idea of settling into her palace than by her new husband. However, she did express a strong desire to start a family, stating, "I want a family so much. I want to fill this nest and make it a real home." With her marriage, Hope became the stepmother to the Crown Prince's 2 sons and 1 daughter, a role she embraced wholeheartedly. She grew fond of her stepchildren, possibly seeking to reclaim the childhood she had lost. Hope and the Crown Prince eventually had 2 children together, adding to the dynamics of their household. However, her transition to life in Sikkim was not easy. As an immediate public figure, she faced skepticism from the local population, who were wary of an outsider potentially influencing their politics for her own benefit. Hope Cooke took significant steps to reassure the Sikkimese people of her loyalty. After marrying the Crown Prince, she made a bold move by renouncing her U.S. citizenship to signify her commitment to her new identity. This action was met with criticism from some American politicians and her former high society peers. As a result of giving up her citizenship, Hope was removed from the Social Register, a directory of prominent American families, marking a symbolic rejection by her old social circles. While some publications condemned her actions, many others celebrated her story. Media outlets worldwide reported on her marriage, turning her into a sensation. Notable publications like National Geographic and The New Yorker featured her and the Crown Prince, highlighting their wedding and travels to the U.S. Although her husband was Buddhist, Hope chose not to convert, which was puzzling since she had been interested in Buddhism since childhood. When she met former U.S. Secretary of State Henry Kissinger, he noted that she seemed more Buddhist than many locals, a positive image for the wife of a crown prince. However, her role would evolve further. 2 years after their wedding, Hope's husband was crowned Chogyal King of Sikkim on April 4, 1965. Influenced by Hope, he became a relatively progressive ruler, leading the country into a period of cultural growth. Sikkim's literacy rate and per capita income surpassed those of neighboring countries, including India. Although there were concerns about potential annexation by India, the Chogyal managed to maintain the nation's independence for the time being. However, behind the scenes, their marriage was far from perfect. Despite his progressive public persona, the Chogyal struggled with heavy drinking and had a reputation as a womanizer. Hope Cooke witnessed her husband's darker side early in their marriage. She had brought her record player to the palace, which she cherished as a connection to the West. Shortly after their honeymoon, an argument erupted when the Chogyal discovered she hadn't cleaned the refrigerator, leading him to throw her record player out the window. Their marriage faced numerous challenges, and it was clear to many that it was difficult. In her autobiography, Hope revealed a painful truth. Her husband had been unfaithful throughout their marriage, having started an affair with another woman before they wed. He kept letters from this woman, which Hope would read when she found them. When she confronted him, he dismissed her concerns. Hope also sought affection outside her troubled marriage. During a solo trip to New York, she rekindled a romance with a childhood friend. However, this affair weighed heavily on her conscience, leading her to adopt unhealthy coping mechanisms. Struggling with her loveless marriage and precarious political position, Hope began to drink more frequently, consuming beer in the morning and switching to whiskey by noon. This habit became routine, and she also developed a dependency on Valium, which caused her to spend days lounging in bed. The pressures Hope Cooke experienced at the time were minor compared to what lay ahead, though she was unaware of this. She had married into Sikkim's royal family during a turbulent period for the country. Despite some progressive ideas from the Chogyal, discontent with the monarchy was growing. By 1973, widespread protests were demanding democratic reforms. Sensing the country's unrest and her husband's diminishing power, Hope tried to engage in politics in her own way. As a talented writer, she penned an article advocating for the return of Darjeeling, which had once been part of Sikkim but was now in India, to Sikkim's governance. She claimed that all land within Sikkim's original borders rightfully belonged to its ruler. Unfortunately, this move backfired. Tensions escalated in 1975 when large crowds of Sikkimese citizens marched to the palace to protest against the monarchy. Like her marriage, Hope's influence was fading rapidly. The culmination of her and her husband's struggles came on April 10, 1975, when he was officially deposed and placed under house arrest. Plans were made for Sikkim to merge with India as a state under Indian authority. Just a decade earlier, Hope had made history as the first American-born queen consort of Sikkim, but now she would also become the last. She did not linger to enjoy any advantages that might come from this title. Due to her status as an outsider, her article was criticized as insensitive and unhelpful, further straining relations with the already hostile Indian government. Her involvement in political issues only increased skepticism about her, with some elites suspecting she was a CIA operative. Her attempt to influence the situation had failed. Shortly after her husband's deposition, Hope Cooke returned to New York City with her 4 youngest royal children. Her 2 biological children and 2 stepchildren. She tried to establish a new life, adopting a casual style to blend in. Within weeks, she was settling in, but her renounced citizenship posed a challenge. Some members of the House were displeased with her renunciation and refused to support her citizenship reinstatement. Eventually, a compromise was reached, allowing her to obtain residency instead. In 1980, 5 years after her husband lost his title, their marriage officially ended in divorce. However, the worst was still to come. Just 2 years later, her ex-husband died of cancer in New York, where he had also relocated. Despite these hardships, Hope Cooke persevered. Once driven by her passions worldwide, she found fulfillment in New York City, the place she had moved to after losing her parents. She became a successful writer and historian, teaching at Yale and her alma mater, Sarah Lawrence College. Reflecting on her experiences with Sikkim and her marriage, she later stated, "I'm a different person now. If I had a sense of myself when I married, I wouldn't have lost my boundaries in Asia." Hope currently resides in Brooklyn, continuing her work as a writer, historian, and lecturer. Although her fairy tale ended tragically, the postscript of her life may well be the true fairy tale she was meant to have.